So they put the level up, but we never stay at critical for more than a matter of days, because it becomes self-defeating if you stay at some sort of emergency level for weeks on end. You just can't realistically do that. So I think this is part of a process whereby there will be a manhunt. They seem to feel that there is something else there. Operation Tempora, where the military are deployed, usually means that something like between 1,000 and 1,500 troops are on standby. A few dozens of them may be used, and the principal use of the troops is not to go out looking for terrorists, but to release armed police to do other things. So it's a way backfilling for the police, because in all terrorist issues, the police have to take the lead, police and the intelligence services. So that's where we are with that. I have to say I'm quite surprised to hear the news, and it puts a different spin on where we are with this particular incident. It is the tip, the government believe it is the tip of a bigger iceberg that they're not sure about. I think that's the message we take away from this.
And just to explore a little bit more about why you're surprised, that the points that you were making there, the fact that so much of the device remained intact after the explosion, the fact that there will be presumably acres of CCTV on the various stations that the train had gone through to go through. Had you imagined that progress would have been relatively easy for the police to make?
Well, I would imagine that the police have got a pretty good idea of the person that has put this device on the train. There's only 5 other stations between Wimbledon and Parsons Green, so there's only a limited number of places that this could have been put on the train in which the person could have got off. Also, I mean, putting bombs on the tube means that you are going to be on CCTV at every step of the way. Throughout London, the tube is the most surveilled part of the whole of our London network, and if you or I just go to and from our daily business using the tube in the mornings, by the time we get home at night, we've been on CCTV between 250 and 300 times, just as ordinary people. So this person will clearly, some sort of figure will be on CCTV. The DNA is important. This bomb is largely intact. That means that the forensics of it will be very good. And I promise you, it is almost impossible to make a bomb without leaving your DNA on it. You know, a single bead of sweat, a single little piece of skin from your eyebrows, it doesn't matter. If you lean over a device and do something with it, your DNA will be on it. And the police and the intelligence services have the DNA of an awful lot of the people that they're interested in. So I'd be surprised if they don't know who this person is, or they've got a pretty good idea who it is likely to be, but it may well be that they don't know where they are, and that there is literally a manhunt going on now. But more significant than that, I think, raising the threat to critical implies that they think that this is part of a bigger network, that this person or 2 people, whoever it was, who planted this particular device, were part of something bigger. If they were only chasing this person, I don't believe they would have put the level to critical, because it's a big thing to do. It's expensive. It tends to make the public a bit more alarmed. So they don't do it. They don't do it lightly, and they certainly, prime ministers don't announce this for political effect. They get their advice from JTAC, who are the professionals, and JTAC don't give the Prime Minister the advice unless they really mean it.
Okay, Professor Michael Clark, we appreciate your time here this evening and your expert analysis of what we've heard tonight. Thanks very much indeed. Well, let's bring in then our Home Affairs correspondent Mark White, who's here with me to get more reaction to the Prime Minister's announcement this evening, raising the threat level to its highest level. What's the significance of that, would you say?
Well, a very good point just mentioned. This advice from the Joint Terrorism Analysis Centre is independent advice. They are working on all of the latest intelligence they're getting through from the security services and the police on what they perceive the threat to be, and it's clear that they now believe there is a real potential for other attacks imminently. This individual responsible for putting the device on that underground carriage is still at large, we understand this evening, has not been caught. So while that person is still out there, and there may be a wider network at play here, there is of course real concern. Now, we saw this threat level raised to critical in the aftermath of the explosion in Manchester. Again, they had thought that there may have been a wider network at play. It turned out that there was effectively a lone individual involved in the attack itself, no others waiting in the wings at that time. But we saw the threat level raised to critical. We saw this operation involving the military also brought into play, where the army were on the streets outside key buildings, and what they were doing in that process was not there necessarily to respond to incidents and deal with terrorists during raids on properties, that kind of thing. That's still very much in the domain of the police, and it will be as we go forward in the days ahead at the critical level. But what the army will be used for is to come in and guard some critical infrastructure and allow the armed police that, say, for instance, guard the likes of Westminster, around Buckingham Palace, some of the nuclear establishments around the country, allows those fully trained armed officers to come in and help supplement some of the armed teams in centres of population like London, so that they can get involved in helping with the raids that will inevitably follow what has happened here. This individual, we believe, still at large. That individual will have to be accounted for, but if there's a wider network at play, expect a number of raids in the coming days.
And what's the message to the public in all of this, would you say? We heard Theresa May appealing for people to continue to be vigilant.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to tell the public not to be alarmed when the terrorist threat level has reached its highest possible point, meaning an attack may well be imminent, but they want people not to be alarmed, but certainly absolutely vigilant. And on top of the issue we have with raids that are likely to be taking place in the coming days, because this is uppermost in people's minds at the moment, we can expect a lot of security alerts in the coming days as well. When people see something suspicious, they might not have thought much about it a few days ago. Now they'll be reporting it to the police.
Okay, Mark, thanks very much indeed for that update. So let's just go back over events, because it is now just over 12 hours since this explosion happened on the tube train. So let's take you through the day, shall we? At 8:20 this morning, the Metropolitan Police were called to Parsons Green station here after reports of a fire on a train. Within 5 minutes, the first firefighters arrived at the scene. Commuters on the busy train caused something of a stampede as they fled from the tube station. Then at around 10 o'clock, video emerged online showing a burning bag on board, showing wires and flames. Then at 10:15, Scotland Yard confirmed that they were dealing with a terror incident. At 11:42, the US President Donald Trump intervened with a tweet calling the attackers loser terrorists that were in the sights of Scotland Yard. At around 12 o'clock, the NHS said 22 people were being treated in 4 hospitals in the capital. Well, that number has since been raised to 29. Then at 12:30, the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, said that the terror incident was an attempt by evil and cowardly individuals and promised those responsible would be caught. At 1 o'clock, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, chaired a COBRA meeting to brief ministers on the incident. And at 2:45, she said the terror threat would be kept at severe but under review. But then, of course, since then, just in the last few minutes, we have heard again from the Prime Minister this evening, telling us that that threat level has now been raised to the highest level, the level of critical, which essentially means that an attack may well be imminent. She also said that Operation Templar would go into effect, which essentially puts more of the military on the streets, freeing up police to go about their investigations to try to get to the bottom of this particular attack. Well, throughout the day, we've heard from some of those who were caught up in this morning's attack, and here's what they told us.
I was on the tube on the way to work, nearly at the very, very end of the whole train, and at Parsons Green Station. We were at the station, thank God, and the doors were open, because I don't know what would have happened if we'd been moving and it happened, but the explosion went off, and it was just like, from what I remember in my head, it was just this sheet of orange flame and this huge bang, and obviously everyone screamed and ran off. And it's a blur, but I just remember being this group of screaming people, and then someone being like, we need to get off the platform, we need to get off the platform.
Literally stepped on within 2-3 seconds, maybe a bit longer, a massive bang occurred. Didn't know what happened, looked around, and the first thing we saw was an orange sort of fireball circumferencing the whole tube coming towards you, a bit like you see on like 24 TV show, a movie sort of situation, and just people going into that fireball.
So the flame just
came towards you
the whole carriage
at like light speed, and then we managed to fall off as it sort of petered out and came to the end of the carriage, and there was this mass hysteria, people shouting, screaming, trying to get away from the situation.
As the doors open, people were running down the platform, down the stairs, got backlogged by the barriers not opening. It was a big crush, and I was still on the train, and then the people shouting sort of, was there an assailant? Has he got a knife? That type of thing. And that's when sort of a real shake-up happened. And
emergency services were there immediately. As I left the station, ambulances and police were turning up. The staff were actually shouting at us to get back. So the people at the bottom of the stairs that were really being crushed, I was in the middle, they were sort of towards the bottom with all that weight. They were shouting at us, get back, and I assume now that was for the safety of those at the bottom. But the staff didn't know, they had no idea, they were just as shocked as we were.
We just hear the bang, look around, see this wall of fire that's engulfed the whole, like the whole circumference of the carriage just coming towards us, and we just ran.
This doesn't happen here. This is like nothing ever happens here. Like it's
like
peaceful.
A village in London. This is such a nice place to live.